The Last Detention. It was raining when Leo was called in for detention. He had argued with Mr. Halston during math class, and now he was stuck in room 204, scratching out lines in his notebook. I will not talk back. The room was nearly dark. Only one flickering ceiling light remained on, casting long shadows on the walls. Mr. Halston, silent and stiff as always, stood at the front of the room. "You'll be here for an hour," he said. "Do not speak. Do not move around. Do your punishment." Leo rolled his eyes. "Whatever," he muttered. At exactly 4:17 p.m., Mr. Halston's phone rang. He answered it with a frown, nodded slowly, then turned to Leo. "Stay put. I'll be back shortly." He stepped out and closed the door. The lock clicked. Leo sighed and leaned back in his chair. The school was eerily quiet after hours. No footsteps, no janitor, not even the sound of wind or rain, just silence. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The classroom clock read 4:33, then flickered, its hands jumping and spinning. Leo stared at it until the second hand stopped and started ticking backward. He stood up. That's when he noticed something odd. The desks, which had been in neat rows, were now slightly off, angled inward as if turning to face his chair. He rubbed his eyes. Maybe he was tired. Maybe this was just a trick of the light. Then the classroom door, still locked, rattled. He jumped, heart pounding. "Mr. Halston?" he called out. No answer. He approached the door, jiggled the handle. Still locked. Behind him, a loud scraping sound. He turned. The desks had moved again. Now they formed a perfect circle. In the center, Leo's chair. "What the hell?" he whispered. Then the whiteboard began to write. No chalk, no markers, just lines forming by themselves, slowly spelling, "Time to learn your final lesson." Leo backed away, heart racing. "Okay, this is a joke," he said aloud. "You got me." The classroom lights went out. Total darkness. Then a low whisper. "Sit down." Leo turned in every direction, but saw nothing. The shadows around the circle of desks deepened, thickened. Figures began to emerge from the corners. Tall, thin silhouettes. No eyes, no mouths. Just shadows in the shape of people. One of them stepped forward. It pointed to the chair. "No," Leo said, trembling. A whisper came again, louder now, echoing in his ears. "Sit, or be forgotten." The chair slid backward and crashed into his legs. He stumbled and fell into it. The figures closed in. Their hands were cold, heavy, invisible. The notebook on the desk opened on its own. Words appeared. "I will not speak. I will not leave. I belong here." Over and over. Leo tried to scream, but his voice was gone. Everything faded to black. On Monday morning, students returned to school. Room 204 looked normal. Desks in rows, lights steady, nothing out of place. But there was no sign of Leo. Mr. Halston, when asked, frowned and said, "Leo? There's no Leo in my class." The attendance sheet had no record of him. His locker was empty. His friends couldn't remember his last name. Only one person noticed something strange. When Sophie, a junior, sat at the back of room 204, she found a notebook on her desk. Every page filled with one sentence, repeated hundreds of times. "I will not leave. I belong here." She handed it to Mr. Halston, who smiled as he tossed it into the trash. "Just old junk," he said. But that night, Sophie stayed late to finish an assignment, and as she left, she could have sworn she heard a whisper from room 204. "Sit down." The choir room door. Eastridge High had a long hallway no one liked to walk through after dark. At the end of it stood the old choir room. Room B112. The school had sealed it off years ago, after a tragedy that no one talked about directly. According to the whispers, a girl named Clara had collapsed during a solo performance and never woke up. Some said her heart gave out. Others claimed she'd seen something no one else did. After Clara's death, the room was locked. Covered windows, bolted doors. Even the teachers avoided it. Still, late at night, strange things were said to happen. Soft humming, a girl's voice singing scales that echoed through the hallway when no one was inside. Nina, a senior and amateur ghost hunter, had heard the story since freshman year. Now with graduation approaching, she wanted answers. She wasn't scared. She wanted proof. On a rainy Thursday evening, she slipped into school with her phone, flashlight, and camera. The hallway lights buzzed overhead as she approached the choir room. The doorknob was rusted but unlocked. She pushed it open. The room smelled like dust and old wood. Music stands stood frozen in place. Sheet music still scattered as if a class had just ended. The grand piano, covered in a white sheet, sat untouched in the corner. Nina began recording. "This is room B112, she whispered, "the place where Clara died." She moved closer to the piano and reached to lift the cover. That's when she heard it, humming, clear, beautiful, familiar. She froze. The sound was coming from behind the stage curtain at the back of the room. Step by step, she approached the curtain, heart hammering. She reached out with a trembling hand and pulled it aside. A girl stood there, wearing an old-fashioned school uniform, head down, eyes closed, pale, still. Nina stepped back. "Clara?" she asked, barely breathing. The girl opened her eyes, pitch black. Then she screamed. Not a normal scream, something inhuman, shrill, and endless. The lights above shattered. The piano crashed to the ground on its own. The sheet music lifted into the air like birds trying to escape. Nina ran. She burst through the door, down the hallway and out into the storming night. She didn't look back. The next morning, Nina returned to school like nothing had happened. She told no one, but she didn't delete the video. That night, she watched it again. Everything looked the same until the very end. Right before she ran, the camera caught something she hadn't seen. A second figure, standing behind her, smiling. Clara. Now, students say the choir room door swings open on its own sometimes. And if you stand too close, you might hear humming. If you do, whatever you do, don't open the curtain. The janitor's closet at Willow Creek Middle School had its secrets. But the strangest one was the old janitor's closet near the basement stairwell. No one used that hallway anymore. The school had added a new wing years ago, and the basement had been off limits ever since. But every now and then, students would walk past that door, room B1, and swear they heard sounds, whispers, dragging, or a faint tapping from the inside. Max, a curious 7th grader, didn't believe in ghost stories. He loved science and logic. Ghosts, in his mind, were just made-up tales to scare kids. So when his friend Jordan dared him to open the janitor's closet after school, Max took the challenge without hesitation. "It's just a closet," Max said. "There's nothing down there." That afternoon, as the last bell rang and students filtered out, Max slipped away from the crowd and headed toward the old hallway. The floor tiles were cracked. The walls were darker here, like the paint had aged faster. He found the door. Faded red letters still read, "B1 Janitor." The doorknob was cold to the touch. It wasn't locked. Max slowly pushed it open. Inside was darkness. He flicked on his flashlight and stepped in. Mops, buckets, shelves of dusty cleaning supplies. Everything looked ordinary. He almost laughed. "This is what everyone's afraid of," he whispered. Then he heard it. A soft shh, like someone sweeping the floor just behind him. He turned around. No one there. The door slammed shut. He dropped the flashlight in panic. When he picked it up, something had changed. The room was no longer small. It had stretched, growing into a long, dim hallway lined with lockers. The lockers were old, rusted, and each one had a name etched into the metal. Max stepped closer. He froze. Each name was a student who had once gone missing from Willow Creek. Names he'd heard in stories. Names teachers never talked about. His own name was on the last locker. The air grew heavy. From the end of the hallway, something began to move. A tall, hunched figure dragging a mop, soaked in something dark. Its face was obscured by shadows, but Max could hear it breathing. Wet, ragged breaths. He ran, but the hallway twisted, shifting like a maze. No matter which way he turned, he ended up back in front of his locker. And then it opened, on its own. Inside, nothing. Just darkness. And a voice. "Time to clean up." The next day, Max didn't come to school. His desk sat empty. Teachers said he had transferred, but no one knew where. A new kid took his seat the following week. The janitor's closet, still there, still locked. But if you walk past it when the hallway's empty, you might hear that sound, shh, and see a faint glow of a flashlight flickering inside. And if you listen closely, you might hear a whisper from behind the door.